March 8th is a significant day for you. That's the day where you earned the Navy Cross and was awarded the Purple Heart. I don't know if there's anything leading up to it that you need to share, but love for you to share that story, that operation.
Absolutely. Yeah. March 8th, 2020, we were tasked with a large cave clearance operation. This was right around, it was the same time that COVID started to kind of run rampant in the world. And I say that because originally our sister team was the lead on this operation, and we were following it very closely because just in case they needed us, they were going to pull me as another element leader to help them out. So I was in charge of guys at that point.
You have some experience now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So that was my third MARSOC deployment. I was on my fifth total deployment. And I was actually in charge of like developing the scheme of maneuver. So our sister team, their whole partner force got COVID. So all of a sudden their partner force couldn't go. So now that team is out, and they handed it down to us. And so I had 4 days to make a plan and train my partner force. Luckily, they had done a lot of the recon, and a lot of the footage was already there. So I made the scheme of maneuver. I was very close and intimate with this plan. We were up in the Mosel Dam at that time. So like I had mountains to my training and rehearsals. So like I had been already working on a lot of subterranean warfare stuff. We were developing an SOP for it, standard operating procedure, to be able to combat these caves, because we had already gone in several at that point. So we were basically tunnel rats. And I mean, we were creating this really good SOP to get in there. And so this was perfect for us. It was in our wheelhouse. We had everything at our disposal.
What region was this?
So I was in Mosul, but this was basically in between Mosul and Erbil.
Okay.
It was called the Makmur mountain range.
Okay.
There's just little sliver of mountains that are like right in the middle of a big desert.
Just all the Iraqi insurgents are just digging in that mountain network. That's like a network of tunnels and stuff. I've never been there, so I'm curious.
It was the Kurds there was a defined like line right there. There was Kurds, and then there was like ISIS dug into there. So ISIS was back down to an insurgency level. They were like in these sleeper cells in Mosul. So we were doing like hits with the SWAT team there. And then we would go into the outskirts of the village and find in those sleeper cells and stuff. And then they found this huge cave complex. So they had a really intricate system in there. And ISR had seen 7 total caves that they had found. And then they got boots on the ground. So it was a joint operation too. So we had some French with us, and then our Iraqi partner force. And I had about 50 Iraqis with me. And then we split up into 2 assault elements, took helicopters in, and the plan was to kind of soften it up with a lot of explosives. And at that point we had known dropping a bomb on a cave like that is only going to maybe disrupt them, but it's also going to disrupt the earth. So it's going to be way harder to find any trace or sign of IEDs, any sort of booby traps or anything like that. It's going to be way harder to walk on a mountain that's all just dust now. But it was helpful, I guess. So it concussed a little bit of them. Then we had snipers and some machine gunners in place that kind of came in before the assault element. So I guess backtracking just a little bit before we inserted, they had always seen, I think it was 7 fighters. They had seen these same fighters coming in and out. They were always in chest rigs, or, they always had weapons on them of some sort. So we knew that there was going to be people there. We knew that's why we put the bombs on target, and that's why like the snipers and stuff went in beforehand too. And we were basically going to be the cleanup crew. And then it was 24 hours before we were about to go in. All of a sudden there's 9 guys, and then 12 hours there's 12, 11, like more more people started showing up the closer we were getting to insert. And then I think by the time that we got the go there was probably 19 fighters. And anybody who's been on a combat operation, you know that there's go and no-go criteria. And a part of the no-go criteria was amassing of double the troops that were on the ground. And there was over double. So there was a lot of things that were already pointing to like, hey, this should be a no-go. We inserted in broad daylight. As special operations, we work best at night, and we didn't get to utilize the darkness to our advantage. But we went in anyways. And as soon as we landed, man, it was like this really eerie feeling just kind of swept the battlefield. And I walked to the top of the mountain. I met the ground force that was there. They kind of gave me the down low on everything. And my old team commander was up there. His name was Mo Novice, and gave him a big old hug. He's like this 6'4" giant, and gives me a big hug. And I was like, hey, Mo, like I think my water is kinked in my backpack. Can you help me out? And he's like pulling on it, and he's like, dude, you have no water in here. Like, so he's like, gives me all of his water. And I was like, dude, no, you're coming down with us, so you need to keep your water. He's like, no, man, I'll be in the back with your magazines if you need them. So just let me know. And so we kind of joked about that up there. And then we started heading down the mountain. And our partner force started getting really scared. I mean, the mountains were getting bigger. The rocks were getting steeper, sharper. And when we get there was several fighting positions that were not on the map. We didn't see them on ISR. Like ground level is a whole nother beast, and you could see bunkers all over the place. Like these guys had stacked, whether it's sandbags or what have you, rocks to make these fortified fighting positions. So we had to keep a very, very close eye on everything. And we started making our way down. And I remember me and my buddy, we shot rounds into several caves that just looked like, I mean, there was a couple that had like sheets flapping in the wind, and we're like, I don't know, somebody's probably in there just watching me. So we would send rounds through those. And then we finally got up, saw some caves with some people in there, did our dead checks, and then kept moving on. As I was about to enter into a cave, is when I got a call saying, hey, the remainder of the assault force is going to split off and go check out another cave. And I told him like, hey, just stay where you're at right now, and then we're going to consolidate and start our clear from the top down like we planned. And then they kind of they went that way instead. So now our assault force is split up, and the support by fire can no longer see them because they're separated by a terrain feature. And then this is where things started to go wrong. They kept getting sucked more and more into their work down there, and then they found a cave that was not on anything. They found a solar panel that was up there, and so they went to go investigate it. And it was a French special operator in the U.S. They started to like pie around this cave, and then there was a couple other steps taken, but I'm kind of brushing over some of those wave tops. But long story short, the French operator kind of slides down the mountain to pie this side, and then the U.S. guys pie this side. And they see the French operator first and open up on him. They wound him, and then when the other two U.S. guys kind of show right in front of the cave, they were hit right away. And all the while, I'm up in another cave, staring right in the face of this like dust-covered dead ISIS fighter. And I mean, I can still see that dude's face all the time, because as soon as I'm like about to make entry in there, I had just called it up. That's when hell breaks loose behind me. Like explosions, automatic machine guns. Like, I mean, in fighting in the mountains is a whole nother beast. The echoes and the sounds, like how they carry, how the percussion, it's wild. So I start hearing the casualty calls coming over the radio, and then like there's one casualty down, and then they're like, there's an Eagle down. And I was like, oh my God. And like my heart dropped. So an Eagle is a U.S. service member, U.S. special operator. And so another, second goes by. I was like, it's okay. Like they've got this. They know what to do. And then the next call comes in. There's another eagle down. I was like, oh my God. Like my heart just drops. And I was like, I have to go. So I turned to my partner force. I was like, you guys watch this cave. Like I'm going. And I run over
everybody,
there.
I want to make sure everybody listening understands when he says a partner force, a lot of times MARSOCs with a partner force would be a foreign entity.
Right.
So it would have been
Iraqis. Iraqi partner force. Yeah. So I picked my stuff up and ran as fast as I could over there, in most untactical fashion I could. I picked the path of least resistance, and I actually ran by these 2 caves that had blankets and sleeping bags and stuff in there. So I just shot those as I run by, and I'm like, I mean, if there's people in there, they're dead now. So I got to keep moving. And they were like little fighting pockets. They weren't like full caves. So it was wild. Everything was like strategically placed to like overlook this one cave. And so I get down there and there's still chaos happening. There's smoke coming out of there. There's still gunfire popping off, but there's pockets of people just frozen. And I was like, what's going on? Give me the lowdown. And nobody's saying anything. So I'm like, well, screw it. There's something going on in this little ravine. So I just threw my ruck off. Had like a 40-pound satchel charge in there because that's what I used to blow caves up with. So I took that thing off and I jumped in there. And there was a French operator in there, and he was guns pointed down the ravine, and I couldn't see the cave at that point. So I start like kind of crawling my way up there, and I try to talk to him. I'm like, hey, where's the casualties? What's happening? But he's just like fixated. And so I'm like, okay, this kind of answers my question. They're up here. So I crawl up, and I crawl up these like big boulders. And mind you, this ravine is closer than these walls here. I mean, it was very close. So it was really loud in there as well. And I ended up crawling up, and then like, that's when I see this like dark cave, this very like, slit in the side of this mountain. But like, I took the picture in really, really quickly because I had no other time to kind of think. But there was so many sandbags, rocks like placed in there to make this like perfect fighting position that they had in there. And obviously I saw it and they saw me, so they ended up pinning me down like right away. But I caught a glimpse of a body that was right there, and I was like, for how much fire they've got coming at me, there's no way that dude's alive. But this French guy starts yelling, and he's like, roll, 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 like he's saying it in French. I don't know if roll in French is the same as roll in English, but I started hearing him say something, and then next thing you know, I see these legs fly up in the air, and I was like, oh my God. So I just like chicken wing my gun and run up there as fast as I could and grab this dude. And like, there's bullets flying over our head at this point, and I'm still shooting as my gun's chicken winged, and I pull him down and I rip him down as hard as I could. And I pull him down these rocks, and then I feel this guy start grabbing him and dragging him away. And then it's just like full on, like I'm both hands back and I'm just gunning as fast as I could and do a little tactical reload and get back up there and start shooting. And then I finally hear another US dude call over, and he's like, hey man, like I'm coming in. Do you need help? I was like, dude, do not come down here. It's like, somebody throw a smoke or something, like get me out of here. And like, this is not the way to go though. And so finally, like somebody throws a smoke, and I get the opportunity and I run out. They're packaging this dude up, treating him. He was shot through and through in the left leg, blew out his calf, and then he was shot in the top of the head. Helmets work. They it like went in the helmet, but like ricocheted through and like just gave him a nice haircut. So he was alive. They packaged him up, and then they ended up having to hoist him out in the Skedco. Hoist is like the thing that comes down. I know that there's some listeners that probably don't know what that means, but like the helicopter dropped a long wire basically, and medic came down and picked him up from the ground. It was way too steep to land, and there was way too much stuff going on, so they couldn't land. So I finally get out of there, talk to my guys. We come up with a plan. and we send a couple guys to the other side, and they went north of the cave, and like they came around. So now we had like a guy on the ground, like trying to look into the cave over there. And then I stayed on top of the cave. So I talked to my snipers, and they walked me on, and I used this dead tree as reference. And every time I would walk up to that, so I crawled up the first time, and I went up to investigate to try to find the other two casualties that we knew that were out there. And at the time, I knew who it was because I knew who wasn't there. And
they were U.S. guys. Who were they with, or?
They were Raiders.
Oh, they were those Raiders. Okay.
Yep.
So these are two of your guys you're trying to find.
Yeah. Yep. So I was because I was looking around trying to get a head count, and I mean I had a feeling who it was.
No Blue Force tracker or anything like that on them?
No. We had the ATAC systems, but we only really used those for jumps. We didn't always use those for battle tracking. I think that they do use that a lot more now, though.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, I walked up there. The snipers walked me on. They're like, I think I see a body here. And as I'm approaching, like, I start getting closer and closer to the edge of the cave. And that's when I see Diego first. Diego Pongo was my team chief. So he was the highest enlisted in our team, in charge of our team. He was a gunnery sergeant. And then I could tell right away that he was gone. And then I see Mo Novice. He was a captain at the time, but he was the executive officer of the company. So there's only one other officer higher than him, the commanding officer. And Mo was posthumously promoted to major. He was a Mustang beforehand. He was my team commander on the last deployment. So we spent a lot of time together.
He's the one that gave you the water.
He's the one that gave me the water on top of the mountain. Yeah. So when I saw him, he looked like, I mean, he was still kind of sitting up and kind of slanted back. His hand was still on his gun. Like he was fighting until his very last breath. But it almost looked like he was like ready to like push himself back, you know? So I was like, maybe he's still alive. So I tried whispering his name a few times, and I didn't get a response. So that's when I like went back and I called it up, and I was like, I confirmed with, the commanders. I was like, Mo and Diego are gone. And, normally you got call signs, you call up their Zap card info and stuff like that. But, at that point, like I used real talk, and I told them, and everyone like went silent. And the commander was like, say that again. I was like, I'm not going to say it multiple times, but like Mo and Diego are dead. And like, they just could not process it. Everyone was like in the black. Like it was insane, and nobody would make a call. So I'm like, okay, sir, like I'm going to go back in. Like these dudes are sitting there. I'm going to try to go get them now. Like it came from a cave clearance operation to now it's a recovery operation. So we got everybody together, and we're like, all right, this is what we're going to do. I went in a couple times and I tried to get them, but it was like, as I would get close, it's like they could hear me walking on the roof, and they would just start opening up. But it was like we were getting shot at from all different angles. It was really weird. So we started like plugging other holes that were in the other side of the mountainside. But I was calling to my snipers. I was like, I trust you guys. Just shoot them. Like I'm going in, please, like just don't shoot me. And so, I mean, they were shooting within feet, inches of me is what it felt like. And they, like that's a testament right there to how valuable like our snipers are in the battlefield. Is like, yes, we went to MASC, the advanced sniper course, but like the way that a scout sniper is trained is like they're trained in the most intense and austere environments to be able to provide those precision fires on select targets, like in combat operations. So for them to be able to provide those, there's no way that they couldn't see me in their scope. If they were that far zoomed in, then they were doing it wrong, which I know that they weren't. So they were providing those accurate shots on target for me to be able to do my job. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like that type of trust on the battlefield is exactly what we need in our special operations and our snipers, like they need to be able to provide those precision fires. So anyways, they were working, and I kept trying, and I ended up pulling back. It was too heavy at that point, and called in the support by fire to shoot in their Carl G's. They tried to shoot several of those in there. We had a couple duds. We had a couple that skipped off the top. So I was like, okay, this isn't working. So we called in the Apache. They shot 220, 30 mics in there. And there was zero effect on the cave. So I was like, all right, thread of hellfire in there. Like, well, we need a 10-digit grid. So I was like, okay. So I walked up there, and the Apache's still circling around. I was like, can you guys see me? And because my JTAC, he's like, hey man, I'm too far removed. I need you to do this for me. So I'm like, okay, like I'm not a JTAC. I will talk to you guys and I'll tell you what I need though. So I'm talking to them, and I tell them like, hey, here's your 10-digit grid. I'm standing on top of the cave. Just shoot 5 meters lower than me. And like, there's still like pop shots and stuff going on. And I'm talking like loud over the radio. And so they're like, okay, roger that. So you need to move up and over this mountain. I was like, I'm too tired and I don't have any more water, so I'm not doing that. I was like, I'm going to hide right behind this rock. And they're like, just get low, man. So I was like, okay. And that was the scariest thing that I've done. Like, I mean, well, I'm minus all the combat stuff, but like watching an Apache and just the hellfire coming in. I mean, it was so close that it was pretty intense, man. Yeah, I mean, it hit, but it did not do what we wanted it to do. So I was like, okay, we're going back in. And so we all get online, and we had snipers covering other positions of opportunity. And I was like, I'm going to throw a couple of grenades, and we're going to see. I guess I kind of skipped over that part. Like I would go up to the cave on multiple attempts, and I would like lean over, like you're kind of like looking underneath the table, and I would chuck grenades in there. I was using ASMs, so they're anti-structural munitions that were like, I think it was like I'm going to mess this one up. It was like 0.9 of a pound of a C4. So, I mean, it was a lot of explosives in this little hand grenade. So it was basically meant to like explode, but then suck everything in to like collapse structures. So I loved those things. I had those for cave operations all the time, and I threw several of those in there. I threw high concentrate smoke in there, and then another ASM to try to like flush them out that way. But they're cockroaches, man. You cannot kill these people. And so I'm sure I wounded and killed some of them, but they just kept shooting every time I would get there. And then, so I went in for that final attempt, and I'm like standing up there, and I was like, okay, this is it. Like I'm all amped up, and we're shooting. The Apache had just like launched these flares, and then all of a sudden I'm like, this is my cue. Like we go in and we start just blazing. And then as soon as I get to the edge, man, and I was like trying to work up the confidence to jump down there, I just whack like right in my leg. I was like, oh my God. And I like hit the ground. I roll back down. I go down to my medic. I was like, dude, I think I just got shot. He's like, what do you mean you think you got shot? I was like, I don't know. My leg hurts really bad, and there's some blood coming out, and lifts my pant leg up. And he's like, yeah, like you're definitely wounded. So it was like, yeah, a little tiny hole in my leg. So it must have been a ricochet. But like my leg started to swell immediately. Like they thought my leg might've been broken or something happened. I don't know. It kind of looked like a 5.56 entrance, which is not surprising. It was not friendly fire because the cave that I had just taken, they had 5.56 on them. So they had everything. So yeah, I ended up, we tried to not call the medevac right away, and because we still had things to do. They were calling in other quick reaction forces to come in to kind of finish the job. But at that point, like I knew I was done. I couldn't walk. I couldn't put any pressure on it. So I ended up calling up to the commander. I was like, hey, we probably need to move back right now, make a new plan, and wait for QRF to get here. And at that point, they contacted the special mission unit that was out there, and they were going to come in and finish the job at night. That wasn't set in stone yet whenever I got medevaced, but it was very very probable that they were coming. So I ended up getting medevaced. I got hoisted off the side of the mountain too. I ended up walking up the mountain to try to get to a good spot to get medevaced from, which hurt really bad. I finally took the pain meds on my way up because I realized like I'm getting out of here. So I started handing out all my stuff that I had left. And at that point, yeah, the meds were kicking in. They put me in the helicopter. They hit me with ketamine right away. And I had the worst trip of my life. I got sucked back down into the cave, and I hear Mo and Diego like yelling for me to try to get them out of the cave. And I'm like trying to talk to them and hit my push to talk and like yell back. And next thing you know, I like wake up and I'm in the hospital bed and I'm like strapped in and I'm like screaming now. It was like a movie scene. It was the most wild thing, but like I just kept yelling like I was so close. I was so close. Like, I mean, I could feel his hand like right there. If he was alive and had one last breath and could have reached up, I could have pulled Mo out. Like that's how close I was. And so, yeah, man, it haunted me for a really long time because I was the epitome of the operator that didn't believe in PTSD. I didn't believe that like, you know, if you just weren't strong enough to deal with the job, like, and this stuff affected you, then you probably need to go somewhere else, you know? But, man, that was definitely the weight that hit me hard. I tried to stay in country. They tried to tell me that my injury wasn't that bad. And then I'm in the hospital with the French guy, you know, and his leg, he's got a huge hole in his leg and like all this stuff. And I'm over here with this little entry wound but like my leg is so red and swollen already. And like, I mean, it was wild. It felt like my leg was burning, like on fire. So like that was at the same time Iran was doing all their threats. Like they were actually bombing Baghdad and Erbil a couple times and stuff like that. So like my team was building a whole bunch of bunkers and I'm like, dude, I'm a liability. I can't move. Like, so I raised my hand. I was like, I need more help. So they sent me back to the States and, that's when everything started happening.